One game is set in the dark, dour land of Morrowind, the other in the vibrant heartland of the Empire. But which game is better? First, a brief synopsis of each game's main story. Morrowind revolves around the Tribunal and their ancient enemy, Dagoth-Ur. The player is tasked with finding out about the Nerevarine prophecy. It is rumoured that this being is a reincarnated Nerevar, the legendary Hortator, or leader of the Dunmer, from hundreds of years ago. After completing the 7 trials to prove their authenticity, the player is summoned by Vivec as Nerevar to defeat Dagoth-Ur by destroying the Heart of Lorkhan. The Heart of Lorkhan is an immensely powerful artifact that fuels both Dagoth-Ur's and the Tribunal's divinity. It is the heart of the former god and creator of the mortal plane, Lorkhan. Killing Dagoth once and for all also involves killing the Tribunal, Morrowind's god rulers. In a way, this is just. The Tribunal betrayed the will of Nerevar by ascending to divinity in the first place, just like Dagoth-Ur had. Thus, using the ancient dwarven tools Sunder, Wraithguard and Keening, the player travels to Dagoth-Ur's citadel in Red Mountain, smashes the Heart of Lorkhan, and slays the now mortal Dagoth-Ur. The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion is set 6 years after Morrowind. The story opens with the murder of the Emperor, Uriel Septim. Fleeing from mysterious assassins, he tells the protagonist before he dies, "Close shut the jaws of Oblivion," gifting the player the sacred amulet of kings. After enrolling with the Blades at Waynham Priory, it becomes clear that the death of the Emperor has left the dragon fires unlit. Without them burning, Daedric forces are free to invade and pillage the mortal realm. Martin Septim, the Emperor's bastard son and last living heir, is their only hope. Rescuing him from a burning chapel and spiriting him away to Cloud Ruler Temple, the player embarks upon a quest to find out about the Emperor's assassins. The mythic Dawn, a cult devoted to the Daedric Prince of Destruction, are led by Mankar Cameron, a powerful Ultima Mage with his own pocket of oblivion. After defeating him and reclaiming the Amulet of Kings which the mythic Dawn had stolen, the player helps to close Oblivion gates across the land, teaching Cyrodiil's armies how to invade the gates themselves and disable them. Eventually, Martin Septim is led to the capital, recognized as Emperor, and brought to the Temple of the One to relight the Dragonfires. However, Mehrunes Dagon invades the Empire's capital, disrupting the process. In a cathartic fight, Martin Septim breaks open the Amulet of Kings and becomes invested with divine power, banishing Dagon and his Daedric forces to Oblivion whilst sacrificing his own life. Oblivion and Morrowind both have great villains, Dagoth-Ur and Mankar Cameron respectively. You might wonder why I say Mankar over Mehrunes Dagon. The short of it is that Dagon is more a force of nature than a villain. It is in his being to dominate. The real villain is not him, but the organisation who works to enable him to invade in the first place, the mythic Dawn. Dagoth-Ur and Mankar Cameron are both morally ambiguous and believable. Although the Tribunal claim that Dagoth-Ur is the one who murdered Nerevar, in fact it could have been the other way around. Dagoth-Ur may have fought with Nerevar against the Tribunal to protect the tools. We will never know the truth behind the confrontation on Red Mountain, but either way, Sotha-Sil, Almalexi and Vivec are far from completely benign beings. Even if they didn't betray their leader whilst he was alive, they did so after his death, in using the tools against his wishes. Dagoth-Ur's master plan also has a logic to it. The corporous disease he spreads across Morrowind turns those it infects into drones in a hive mind, headed by him. His goal is to unify Morrowind under his rule, but also to eventually conquer the continent and establish a singular peaceful hive mind. Although twisted, Dagoth does not believe himself to be evil. In his eyes, he is righting the wrongs of the past and offering a way to bring world order. Mankar Cameron, similarly, has his own justifiable point of view. Mankar's rebellion against the 9 divines stems from the Aedra's apathy towards mortals. He rightly notes that the 9 divines rarely intervene in mortal affairs. Weak gods, the Aedra pale in comparison to the potent Daedric princes. Cameron points out that the Aedra are reluctant gods. They butchered Lorkhan, the founder of the world, when they found out what he had done. Lorkhan had sacrificed much of their power to create the mortal realm and the millions of beings within it. Thus, like the Tribunal, the Aedra are far from wholly good, petulant and weak. They are not the gods that mortals need them to be. Cameron's plan in inviting Dagoth-Ur to Tamriel to rectify this is highly questionable though. Considering the torments he puts his own dead followers through in his little pocket of oblivion, he must know that Mehrunes Dagon will wreak havoc on the land. It's likely that personal interest at the expense of others is tied up with his hate for the Aedra. Both games have strong main quests. They have villains with some moral ambiguity, a cathartic ending, and both stories are told well through interesting and varied missions. Although it should be said that some of Oblivion's missions are more repetitive and less thoughtful. In Morrowind, you had to actually read books to understand what was going on, for instance, the dissident priest's tracts on the Nerevarine prophecy. Oblivion's main quest feels much more whirlwind by comparison, and this is reflected in the lesser playtime. The fourth game's main story is roughly 30 hours long, the third game's 45. On the whole, Morrowind's story is somewhat superior to Oblivion's, but both have emotional punch and a degree of moral ambiguity. One thing that Oblivion does do exceptionally well is its bittersweet ending, with Martin sacrificing himself to save the world. But what makes Morrowind win in the end is the extent of the moral ambiguity and the incorporation of so much lore into the story. World building is a massive aspect of every RPG. Having a believable, visceral, interesting world that's enjoyable to explore is a cornerstone of a successful game in this genre. There are a few elements to world building: ambience, the physical landscape and dungeons, to name a few. Ambience is probably the thing that's least concrete. Both games do a good job of creating distinct, unique atmospheres, and whether you enjoy one or the other more is down mostly to personal preference. Morrowind is purposefully dark and downtrodden, set in an alien-looking nation on the brink of collapse. Oblivion, although set in a time of crisis, is comparatively vibrant. The landscape is colourful, the people cheerful, and the environment friendly. Although different, both games construct their respective atmospheres well. Morrowind with its ash storms, sombre music and gritty Dunmer voice acting, and Oblivion with its lively colours, bustling cities and lush forests. When it comes to the makeup of the physical landscape, Morrowind triumphs. Although beautiful, Morrowind's world feels more threatening. The jagged peaks of Red Mountain, the dead ashlands, and hidden swamps are a constant barrier to exploration. The ethos of the game feels in touch with the tense desperation of the main quest. Morrowind truly feels like a land under assault. In Oblivion, there's less a sense of despair. Although Oblivion gates crop up, the world feels much more alive. As I said, there's a different ambience in Cyrodiil, but I believe that Oblivion's atmosphere could have been improved if there were areas of scorched forest or plains that hit home the reality of the Oblivion crisis. It almost feels like the world is divorced somewhat from the main quest. The dungeons in Oblivion are naturally superior. That comes with the improved graphics and superior engine. But like Morrowind, it suffers from monotony. The caves are populated by either bandits, goblins, trolls, or necromancers. In Morrowind, it's either ancestor spirits, smugglers, or vicious animals. This leads naturally to gameplay and graphics. Oblivion thrashes Morrowind when it comes to looks and ease of play. Map markers, superior rendering distance, overhauled gameplay, these things make it a more accessible game to the modern gamer. But Morrowind has many redeeming features that still make it a worthwhile game to play, even for the uninitiated. Firstly, Morrowind has more authentic feeling quests. Becoming a member of one faction precludes another. The great houses are mutually exclusive. Comparatively, there are less consequences to player actions in Oblivion. Any faction can be joined and completed with no repercussions on other guilds. Equally, due to the lack of voice actors in Morrowind, the dialogue is richer and more expansive. The most insignificant NPCs have interesting things to say. But Morrowind suffers massively when it comes to combat. Combat is statistic based. At the beginning, expect to constantly miss with physical weapons, and if a mage, anticipate being unable to cast many spells at all. But perhaps the most frustrating aspect is the walking speed. Painfully slow, I suspect a chief reason for Morrowind's longer playtime is its somewhat tedious combat and travel. However, Oblivion is far from perfect. The fact that enemies level up with you means that leveling is pointless, whilst the combat, although based on physical accuracy, has little skill involved and turns boring very quickly. On the whole, it's undeniable Oblivion is the more enjoyable game when it comes to gameplay. and it's certainly easier for a newcomer to play. To conclude, both games are excellent, and in my opinion both are superior to Skyrim. I've only considered the main games here, because comparing the DLCs is a whole other video, but for me Oblivion is an 8.6 out of 10, whilst Morrowind is more a 9. Morrowind comes out on top because of its superior main quest, the depth of the lore, and the consistent moral ambiguity. In all other aspects, the games are equally matched, although Oblivion has the better gameplay. Neither game though is perfect. Morrowind is too long, whilst Oblivion has a comparatively blander atmosphere, but both games are worthy of your attention. If you've never played either Oblivion or Morrowind and only Skyrim, I recommend you play them both. I would also suggest that you try and mod Morrowind if you have it on PC. Graphics mods will really help you to get into the game if you're otherwise struggling.